All right, today's guest is someone who actually understands what's happening with AI, not just the hype. Burt is the Director of Strategy and Planning at the Future Skills Organization, where he helps shape how Australia prepares for the future of work. So, yeah, no pressure. In this episode, we unpack what AI is really doing to jobs, why most roles aren't disappearing, and why human skills like critical thinking and communication are becoming more valuable than ever. We also talk about the gap in digital literacy, what educators need to focus on, and how not to get left behind. If you're trying to keep up with AI without losing your mind, this one is for you. Let's get into it. Oh, rugby, what's your thoughts about that? Did you see the game?
Oh,
Happy
yes,
or
I did see the game. So
disappointed?
I'm in Sydney. So I was supporting New South Wales. Thoughts on the game? Um, Lucky to get away with one, I think there. Did our best to lose the game. And Queensland also managed to shoot themselves in the foot. So yeah, I think we will need to play better in one of the next two matches to come away with a victory overall. So a couple of changes, I reckon, but
Yeah.
you know, I'll take it. We've had years of it being the other way around. So it was good to put one over Queensland in the last minute.
Coming from a different continent, when the bowl is a different shape, more of the round one, I can sense the passion that the Australian footy or the rugby or it may be cricket. There is a lot of it. There's a lot of passion about sport, and I think I heard Russell Crowe at one point. He did an interview, and he was seeing a lot of relatives coming from overseas, and they were complaining because everything that was happening during the summer was sport. There's nothing else to play on telly. It's just sport. That's it.
And this summer you got the World Cup, like,
Exactly.
well, this winter, sorry. Yes.
Yeah. For us, unfortunately, it's going to be in the States, I think, in LA. That's where California, that's where they're going to do it. Be interesting with all this geopolitical stuff that is happening. But that aside, what do you think about AI? Is it going to take over the sports that we so much love? Do you see a future where it comes in, because it's in our everyday life, right? We're using it to write emails. We use it to be more effective. We use it to do our shopping. And there are aspects where AI hasn't infiltrated yet. And one of them is sports. Do you see a future where AI is putting into sports and how they're using it?
I think it's I, I don't. I think yes, in terms of kind of there's lots of back office functions across sports that will likely be impacted by AI. You know, we're seeing tasks and jobs changing, um, a lot of whom are employed across, I would imagine, the sports industry. So you will see and anticipate, tech occupations, finance occupations, kind of business, HR type functions changing, or
Mm.
already changing. In terms of kind of on the field, not sure. I wouldn't, not in the near future. I hope not. I like, the other night, really sort of, that kind of passion and the human
Mm.
element and that drama.
Yes.
I would hate to lose that from sport. Uh, so
Do, do you think it's something that we need to safeguard the humanity, the the very thing that makes us human, the sport, the camaraderie, all of that?
look, I think what AI does and what we're seeing more broadly is a greater emphasis on being
Mm.
human and the human skills. So, most pieces of research and most of the feedback we're getting, not just from our industries, but what I'm hearing from other jobs and skills councils from other industries, is the importance of kind of human capability and critical judgment, interpersonal skills. communication, both still written, as well as oral communication,
Mm.
working in a team, problem solving, having subject matter expertise, using your judgment. All of that is becoming increasingly important, and we're seeing that globally. So I don't think that you know that AI is going to replace that anytime soon,
Mm.
and that in fact is where the value and the importance in jobs is going to be increasing rather than anything.
That's an interesting point, because a lot of folks are scared that losing their jobs from AI.
Yeah, look, absolutely, and that's a fair concern, really. Whenever any new automation technology comes along, and obviously we're seeing lots of high-profile job losses in the media that are being linked to AI and AI disruption. But in our research and the research of others, and in particular, probably the leading piece of research in Australia that was published by Jobs and Skills Australia last year around
Mhm.
its generative AI workforce capacity study suggests a much more kind of nuanced view on of transformation of jobs rather than replacement. So that study found that only about 4% of Australian occupations are like a really high risk of being fully automated in the near future. Like we should provide that caveat because as things
Mm.
currently stand, this was a point in time study. Um, by contrast, the vast majority of jobs are going to be augmented by AI. So I think it was like over 80% of jobs,
Mm.
implying that most jobs aren't going to really disappear, but almost all jobs are going to change and evolve as AI takes over some tasks, some routine kind of repetitive tasks within jobs, and that will then free up people within those jobs to focus on other aspects. And that's kind of where those human capabilities that I mentioned earlier are going to come to the fore. And we saw that again just this week, like with Matt Common and Sam Altman from OpenAI talking about,
Mm.
like Sam was mentioning, like perhaps over um, o- thought that the sort of the job impact was going to be greater than it has been to date.
Mm.
And there hasn't been as significant as disruption as perhaps some were expecting. So at the moment, like that research by JSA last year, I think still holds true. So, but it's a reasonable concern to have.
Mm. Even today, I read an article about West farmers are planning to move away white collar jobs into India, um, about 50 or 60 jobs of them, and they're trying to axe some of the jobs here on shore because, like you mentioned, there is a gap. There is a gap of people taking up the new technology, taking up AI. Now, there are two factors. One can be I'm scared of the technology, I don't know, which is um, fair point. They haven't had enough time to use it. And the other one is the pushback. I'm pushing back on the new technology. Now, what can we do in our capacity to help people? And I know that in your organization, you're already involved in a project like that.
We are, yeah. So look, I think a lot of the research points to trust as being a huge barrier to kind of AI adoption, and there's a lot of shadow shadow AI usage across the economy. So people using AI without really their organizations or their businesses sort of appreciating and understanding the amount of usage that's occurring. So people, it's not perhaps being as transparent as they could be. So why does that occur? Look, I think trust is a huge barrier. I think the sort of the skills around both at a managerial level and understanding what the tool does and what the risks
Mm.
associated with it. I think there are gaps in that, and there is also gaps in that sort of confidence of senior managers and leaders to be able to work with their employees to adopt the tools and redesign workflows and embed them into their existing kind of processes. So over the last almost 3 years, we've done a pretty big body of research around the impact of particularly generative AI on our occupations and industries, so finance, technology, and business. And we found that essentially there is broad adoption across the economy, but there's very varied uptake within different kind of worker groups and within small, medium, and large businesses. So the research we've done building on that was to identify, well, why is that occurring? Why is there such great variation in adoption rates across the economy? And what we engaged Queensland University of Technology ARC Training Centre for Behavioural Insights to help us with a piece of research, and effectively it highlighted that shadow AI usage is outpacing kind of formal workplace adoption, and that both trust and usability are both either barriers or drivers of adoption. Small to medium enterprises in particular face pretty significant barriers to adoption, and there is, however, demand growing for AI kind of capabilities. But there is huge demand out there for kind of clear guidelines and frameworks to help
Mm.
support and frame what AI adoption should look like in the workplace. So all of those insights based on that research then informed the development of a suite of practical resources for employers, particularly with a focus on small to medium enterprises. And that process, that this project is pretty close to its conclusion. Actually, we're running a couple of testing workshops, user testing workshops over the next few weeks with a range of small businesses, and then we're really, looking to get those into market by late July. And it's really about bridging that gap, that disconnect between your small employer and their workforce, and it's upskilling those employers to work with their employees in building that trust, thinking about workflow redesign, thinking about kind of process and how you could embed and improve efficiency, improve productivity
Mm.
in your processes and across your business. So, look, it's been a really great project. We're really excited about it, and really excited to get these tools into people's hands as soon as possible, really.
Earlier, we were talking about the research that came out and was published on ABC, an article about new generation coming out and the digital literacy being at the lowest point since the test even began. I think that was about 50% drop in digital literacy. What do you think? Because we're talking about Gen Z, they are born, they came out in this world with a phone in their hands and swiping left and right and doing up and down and doing all that stuff. You would think that this generation would be the best generation using technology, and we're seeing now that that's not the case.
Yes, it is. It's a confusing one. That look, I'm probably not best placed to comment. We primarily focus on vocational education and training. Um, I can reflect on my own personal experiences, I think. So
Mhm.
yes, my children have devices, and like most parents, it's a frequent battle to get them off those devices.
I concur, absolutely.
Can 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 my daughter um, build an AI agent? Does she really understand? And
Mm.
I'll qualify that, she's in year 12. So she's 17 years old. She's, pretty close to completing and doing something else after school. Um, does she understand what generative AI is? Does she understand the risks associated with it? Does she understand the opportunities associated with it? Can she build an agent? The
Mm.
answer to each of those questions is no. She does not have like a firm understanding. She uses it as a sort of a search function almost. She uses it to replace like a web explorer. She doesn't use its capacity. She doesn't like take advantage of what's available. She doesn't think. She doesn't really understand that she needs to
Mm.
critically think and assess the output. She doesn't. Anyway, so
No, I agree. I agree. Look, Tim, you need to have some sort of life experience. You need to have hands-on first before you critically analyze something. You need to have that, oh, I made a mistake a couple of times in order for you to realize what this thing does. Problem is, it's so powerful, and this generation has it at the fingertips, and there's
yeah,
nothing guardrailed it. There's nothing out there to help them.
that look, absolutely. So yeah, exactly. She doesn't have like a sort of a firm understanding of what those guardrails should be. But if she's given a task at school to critically analyze, let's say, I don't know, a piece of literature or something, like she has the skills to be able to do that. I've seen her schoolwork. She's told, right, you need to go away and analyze
Mm.
X. She's pretty good at that. What she doesn't understand, I don't think, is that what is produced by her generative AI platform of choice, she needs to do the same thing each and every single time
That's right.
as things currently stand. So that is a big gap. So look, I think that's part of the picture of that sort of digital literacy perspective. I mean, but yeah,
I agree.
there.
I agree. We need to triangulate the information. We know that. We need to have filters and not take at face value whatever AI tells us or whatever. I mean, that's part of the research. You go and do some research. You need to cross-check it, cross-reference it, make sure that it's been peer-reviewed before you have your final results. Similar thing will happen with AI. But I feel that my children, I felt like them back in 2022. AI just came out. There was this big surge, open AI. I just want to get your thoughts on it. When you first got hands on with it, what did you think?
Um, Look, when it was first released, that feels like a very long time ago, doesn't it?
It does. It's only 4 years ago.
Yeah, right. I was in a different job, and uh, like we were still, I think COVID was still a thing. Like
Yes.
it was a pretty chaotic time, all in all. I think, when I first saw it, I thought it would be useful.
Mm.
Um, but I was using it in a pretty rudimentary fashion. I was kind of using it as a sort of a search function. Tell me what you can find. It was coming up with kind of inconsistent findings. It wasn't always accurate. I didn't really engage with it, I would say, until I started this job in July 2023. And then it started to become much more real. And, over the last 3 years, the technology has just
Mm.
progressed so unbelievably quickly. And it can now do things that, 3.5 years ago when I first looked at ChatGPT, I would I wouldn't have guessed at being possible within, I don't know, a decade. So it's moving super, super quickly. The possibilities are massive. I think, we as an organization, our goal is to train people, or get the training available for people to really take advantage of these opportunities that it offers, to really, be able to respond and update their skills as the technology changes. And as I said, that is happening super, super quickly. And look, from what I'm kind of hearing, it's going to move even more quickly in the near future. So, we need to be prepared for that, and so those fundamental human capabilities, the flexibility, ongoing upskilling, building on like a really good foundational understanding of what these platforms are, and what they can do, and some of the risks and opportunities associated with them is going to be critical. So, look, I think, for a school audience, use the tools, play around with them. They can, they're at a point now where they can help you to use them better.
Yeah.
Uh,
How
basically.
crazy is that? You tell it to tell it, well, how do you want me to help you? So you can screenshot stuff that will help me with this screenshot. I'm having trouble to do this, and screenshot that. It's I lecture at a college, and one of the things that I get my students to do is to challenge me in terms of, this is the curriculum. What it is that you will want to take out of this? Because the curriculum is a curriculum, you need to go through it, you need to have a sort of understanding. And one of the things that they did was, okay, so give me a summary of today's lecture. What are the points that you find interesting, and get me questions to ask my lecturer. So it kind of turned the tables, the flipped classroom, if you like, and that was kind of a fresh, a fresh take on it. The students were asking questions, particularly, and draw from my experience, because when you get your PowerPoints, it's very dry. They're very bullet points and draw from the curriculum. They don't have any experience on it.
Mm.
As lecturers, as trainers, as teachers, you need to dramatize knowledge. You need to dramatize the experience of learning. There's no way we can beat AI these days. There's no way information, they will do it faster, they will do it better, they will do it more efficient. What's your advice for the teachers now? Because the teachers will be out there. The teachers will use the technology. The teachers will be part of the conversation, and they need to assess students using the technology.
Look, the teachers are critical in the rollout in the next few years, more than ever. Like, they are under, I would imagine, a lot of pressure, because in sort of, there's three aspects to their role almost. There's like, one is they need to really understand these tools and be using these tools as part of their daily use. And I would imagine, I'm not certain, but I would imagine that as time goes by, there will be an expectation that, these tools create productivity gains within the teaching workforce through sort of some of the administrative functions that teachers are expected to undertake. So I'm aware that a couple of states are sort of investing in upskilling their teachers and their school leadership as well in understanding these tools. The other elements that I think put teachers under massive amounts of pressure is, the pace of change in the technology.
Oh.
And then finally, the pace of change in work. So not only are you expected to use these tools to facilitate support your teaching practice, but then there's an expectation that you're preparing young people for, a future in work. And that
That's right.
future in work is going to have some aspects of generative AI as part of it in almost every occupation. So you have to understand it, you have to use it in your practice, like as a teacher, and then you also have to be able to support young people to think about how they build their skills in it.
Mm.
So it's an unenviable task, to be honest with you. Like, whatever we can do to support the teaching workforce, we are incredibly cognizant of this challenge. So we have created a project called the Skills Accelerator AI, and it is ostensibly targeted at vocational education and teachers and trainers. And it again came out of a piece of research my team conducted a year or so ago that heard a really strong feedback from the vet teaching workforce that, the pace of change in technology was so great. They really wanted support in understanding and being kept up to date in what is happening in industry, what is happening in tech as well. So we created this project called the Skills Accelerator AI. It is free to sign up. Encourage all your listeners to have a look. I'm aware that we do have a few schools already, school teachers who are already kind of starting to engage with it. Essentially, it brings together teachers and trainers and industry to connect, work together, share best practice, understand how technology is changing, understand how technology is being used in the workplace, and help support the teaching workforce to, maintain their skills and keep up to date. So we've got also another stream of work within the accelerator, which is a specific sort of a sprint, which targets specific challenges that have been identified by specific training organizations. So if they want help with X, whatever it is, then we try and find a partner, an industry partner, to help work through that challenge. So look, the latest webinar was a couple of days ago. It's available on our website, and really encourage people to get involved. We are very aware of this challenge and very keen to support the teaching workforce, given the critical role that they're going to play.
Everything is changing so rapidly. To keep up, it takes a lot of effort. And
Absolutely.
we used to
So
do.
this is and what's great about the accelerator is it's there's no commitment required. You can kind of dip in and out as you want, and there's tools available. There's resources available to support, your own upskilling, and you can kind of be as involved as you want or as little involved as you want, because we are aware there's a lot of commitment and time pressure on teachers, and we just want to make it as easy as possible for people to come and engage. And if they've got a specific challenge, we want to make it as easy as possible for you to either, somebody else has already done that, we can do X, Y, and Z as well, or actually it's slightly different, we'll put our hands up and we need some assistance with this.
We need as many resources as possible, speaking from experience, because this
Absolutely.
train, the AI train, is moving so fast. By the time we think that we have it, something else comes up. Had a conversation with one of my guests on the pod, and they were talking about the ICT skills. You go into uni, you're getting a degree, 4-year degree, 3-year degree, whatever it is, and by the time you come out, it's obsolete because everything now has changed. You have the
That's right.
basics, but everything now has changed. One thing that I want to touch on is the ethics of using AI. I know that I'm touching on a big topic here, but is there anything we can do as educators, as trainers, as industry partners to help the next generation?
Look, I think a couple of things. I'll come to ethics in a second. I think to your question, what can we do? So I think, AI literacy, what we mean by that, I think, goes far beyond kind of tool use. It's not like, anybody can kind of open Claude or ChatGPT or Copilot or whatever, and you can type in a prompt. You can generate a few outputs, and you think, well, I'm AI literate. Well, what all of the research kind of points to is what you really need is an understanding of kind of why and when to use AI, how you assess the outputs from AI, and what the limitations are. Tied to that is the sort of ethics and responsibility. So again, part of relevant to critical thinking, but using AI appropriately. So, I encouraged your listeners earlier to, your students to go out and have a play with AI. But there are, I'm sure, in WA and other states and territories, limitations around AI usage in support of your schoolwork. There are privacy requirements. There's the potential for bias within some of these tools. And, there is a need for sort of transparency around usage. And look, we found, there was a piece of research by the Australian Computer Society that found only half of employers' staff feel confident in using AI responsibly. But where companies invested in kind of AI ethics training, there was a big jump in not only confidence, but also in adoption as well. So I think there's things that we can do as an education system to uplift people's understanding around ethics and responsibility. And it's a requirement for us all to take responsibility to understand what those ethics and biases that can exist are.
Future skills organizations. If I was going to ask you, and I don't want to, because it's funny, I can't ask you to tell me your strategy for the next 2 years. Used to be in the strategy for 5 years of the company. Used to be 2 years. I can't ask you to have you for the next 6 months with the changes that are happening. But future skills organization, what does the future hold?
Look, that's a really great and a live issue, actually. We have literally been having this conversation this morning. So our body of work we've got, I think it is 25 active activities. And there's sort of a mix of activities that will conclude prior to 2028. So that is when our funding arrangements with the Commonwealth Department of Employment and Workplace Relations is due to conclude. So we have a range of activities that will conclude prior to sort of 2028, and some that will look like they may go beyond. But that those 25 activities, it's a really big body of work, to be frank. We're looking at some of the really big items, the Skills Accelerator, obviously, getting AI training into training on AI skills into vocational education and training. We're looking at undertaking a review of the ICT training package, which is very complex. We are looking at a number of qualifications and skills within financial services. So we've just completed a review of the insurance qualifications. We're pretty close to finishing a review of payroll, bookkeeping, and accounting quals. So it's a big body of work. We've got plenty already planned for the next couple of years. But look, from my perspective, so my team looks after the data research, policy, workforce planning functions. Our workforce plan is going to be published in about 6 weeks' time for this year. And that will set out in a bit more detail exactly what other additional work we might want to consider. But yeah, we've got a pretty full kind of dance card at the moment. But my team, look, obviously AI research has been front and center of our mind. As I said, we've done a pretty big body of work around the impact of AI. We worked closely with Jobs and Skills Australia on their generative AI workforce capacity study. We recently completed a report at the request of Minister Giles, Minister for Skills and Training, on sort of a baseline analysis of the AI skills in demand in the sector, across the economy, not just in our industry sectors, and what skills initiatives are currently available and whether they are addressing those skills needs. So that was a really interesting piece of research that we delivered to government a little while ago, and this is where my team's head is really kind of exploring and unpacking some of the issues that we heard about over the last few months.
Tim, in conclusion, what is the one advice that you would give to our listeners, particularly younger ones?
I would say there's a few things, like there is, it's understandable uncertainty at the moment in what future jobs are going to be. I get asked that all the time. My advice would be focus on skills rather than jobs. And then the next question is, well, what are those skills? Well, those skills are some of the things I think I mentioned earlier. So critical thinking, human judgment, understanding the tools, not just at a superficial level. The other things I didn't mention is the importance of data. So AI runs on data. So becoming more comfortable with data is going to be increasingly important. You don't need to become a data analyst, but you do need to be able to read data outputs. You'll probably need to be able to use those in some sort of decision making or advice, communicating what those outputs are to others. So just a basic kind of understanding statistics and metrics and maybe some data visualization, I think will stand you in good stead. The other thing is that don't sleep on subject matter expertise. Like, just because we have the internet with mountains of information doesn't mean that people don't need to be subject matter experts. Just because we have generative AI that can spit out an answer in a few seconds doesn't mean you need to be a subject matter expert. You will still need to know stuff. And the reason why you will still need to know stuff is because you will need to be able to verify and validate the outputs. So you're going to need a fundamental understanding of whatever it is you choose to do so that you can properly interrogate what generative AI is telling you. And essentially you're likely to be a manager. You're going to be a manager of, AI agents. You're probably going to have some sort of team of agents. So that's sort of management skills, how you work with people, working in teams, like absolutely critical as you progress.
Tim, has been an absolute pleasure having you on. Thank you very much for your insight, and I'll see you at the conference.
Thanks, Evan. Speak to you soon. Bye.